Hey, welcome to another Ask Sheila. I'm Sheila.
And I'm Rebecca.
Yes, my daughter.
Spawn of Sheila.
We're together for a couple days, so we thought that we would film some questions together. Yeah, so we got this question, which makes you kind of go,
oh dear.
oh dear. And it was a long one. Rebecca's been reading it and she managed to summarize it, so I'm going to let you tell our...
Yes, this is kind of the skeleton of what we got, using her words, is I never wanted to be a mother and was clear about this while we were dating. 3 years later, we're married and he wants kids. We were trying, but I stopped it when I saw he was continuing unhealthy behaviors like being really controlling and saying he would kill himself if he didn't have a child.
Uh-oh.
He has shown no desire or initiative to work through either of his issues with God or his suicidal thoughts. I told him that I'm willing to try to have a child if he goes to counseling. He has refused. He says his lowest point is behind him and that he doesn't need therapy now. He is offended by any implication that he's unfit to be a father. The most compromise he's offered is to go to counseling after I got pregnant, in the event that conception doesn't immediately change him as he expects it to. But he is unwilling to work on himself prior to conception. I respect that he feels a child will make his life feel meaningful and worthwhile. However, I feel that becoming a mom requires massive sacrifice on my end, and the death of part of myself I've considered inherent for my entire life. It's already been extremely painful to reject that part of myself enough during those past few months we tried to get pregnant. Am I being unreasonable to ask sacrifices of my husband in return for my own, or am I just trying to justify a divorce in order to get out of becoming a mom?
Things that make you go,
oh dear.
Oh dear. This is really multifaceted.
Yeah, we kind of see this as there's two issues here. The issues are she doesn't want to have kids.
Yes.
And he's obviously not really fit. If he's threatening suicide unless she gets pregnant,
yes,
that's not fit to be a father.
Yes.
Right now.
Exactly. And I just want to deal with that latter part first. And then we'll look at the whole question of, I don't want to be a mom. You shouldn't marry someone who can't be a dad.
Yeah, like you can try your best, to do family planning, and obviously there are ways you can make it more likely to succeed versus more likely to fail, but there always is an element of risk. If you are having sex with someone, there is a chance that you could become pregnant. Yeah. You never know. Maybe you got real unlucky and the condom is malfunctioning. Yeah. There's nothing you can do to prevent that. Mm-hmm. And so if you aren't, it doesn't mean that you both need to want to have kids the minute you get ready. When Connor and I got married 3 years ago, and we were not ready to have kids at that point, but we knew that if we did have a kid, we could take care of it.
And you have 9 months to get emotional.
And we have 9 months to get ready, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm not saying like when you get married you have to be ready to have a kid right now.
No.
But the reason that you're not ready to have a kid can't be about basic emotional and character issues.
Yeah, this sounds like there's more controlling and emotional. It sounds very much like a controlling, abusive situation.
If he's controlling, and the longer part of her email did talk about some abusive things, which we may not have mentioned, but there is some abuse involved here. So if he's controlling, if he's threatening suicide, this is not an emotionally healthy person, and you definitely do need to get those things figured out before you have kids. But what I wish is that they had figured it out before they got married.
Exactly.
Because, you can't marry someone saying, well, it doesn't matter if you're messed up because we're not going to have kids anyway. No. There is no birth control method that's 100%.
Except for not having sex at all.
Yeah, and we should never go into marriage saying a child is going to be a tragedy. And we just aren't going to get pregnant. No, you have to assume that if I'm married, this can happen. And that's why you shouldn't marry someone who it would be terrible if you got pregnant.
Because right now, it isn't that it's inconvenient. It's that it might actually lead to a dangerous situation for the child.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah, and if someone says, look, all I need to be healthy and whole is to have a kid, that's crap. Crap. Yeah.
People deal with infertility and they are still healthy and happy and whole. People deal with the loss of a child and they still manage to find manage to find a way to feel fulfilled and have a purpose and all that. So you can't put your life value and your happiness in someone's fertility ability.
No, and also he's saying, I'm going to change as soon as you get pregnant because then my big dream for my life will be met and so I'll be fine. We do that for so many things.
So many things.
We said, if I get married, then I'll be a healthy emotional person.
Yeah, for me it was when I'm done school, then I'll finally not hate life anymore.
to a certain extent.
Actually, that works though.
But I mean, you can't always say like, I will be healthy emotionally when this happens to me, this circumstance happens to me. No, you need to take responsibility for that now. And so, like, don't get married to someone who isn't going to be able to be a father, okay? And absolutely, given the fact that he's abusive and all this stuff, yeah, you need to work on these things before you conceive.
But now, let's assume that there isn't the emotional issues. Now let's assume that he's a perfectly good, stable, lovely guy who just wants to be a dad, and she's putting on the brakes.
Right, and she's saying, like, look, you know, when we got married, you agreed we weren't going to have kids, and now all of a sudden you've changed, and you say you want kids, and that's just not fair to me. And I'm going to have to sacrifice so much. Okay. It is one thing to get married like in your mid-30s and say that you don't want kids. It's something very different to get married in your early 20s and say that you
even
don't
your
want
late
kids.
20s.
Yeah, and from, again, we condensed this letter and
it really does sound like they got married relatively young.
Yeah, they were on the younger end because, you know, you change a lot. You change a lot in
and
your
I mean,
20s.
there are very few 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds who feel right now like they're ready to have a kid. And there are a lot of people who I knew back when we started university who were like, I don't want to get married, I don't want to have kids. And now they're married and like expecting a kid and they're so happy and that's what they always wanted. But they just didn't know it yet because they weren't emotionally ready to picture themselves as a mother.
And if your husband or your wife says, you know, I'll marry you, but you gotta understand I don't ever want children, and they're in their early 20s, I just don't think that's a fair thing to say.
No, I don't think that's fair.
I really don't, because, you know, when you realize that you want kids, and you may realize that after you're married, that is a huge thing to take away from someone. Like,
well, psychologically speaking, that is one of the basic psychological needs that many people have. Like, there are a couple, like, basic needs that if you take them away, they can be really difficult. And, like, I remember we were studying this, like, first, a lot of people, like, the ability to kind of pass on and, like, have a legacy through your family is profound.
And I just know, like, on the other end of it, I really feel like the most fulfilling and most important part of my life really was raising you and Katie and having.
Well, we're fantastic.
Yeah, and I can't imagine my life without that. And so I think that's a big ask to say to someone, marry me, but understand that I don't ever want kids.
And I think that when it's the wife especially who says, I don't want to have kids, I think, like, from again, my experience talking to my friends who've kind of gone through some of these things as well, is the reason is often twofold. First of all, it's really scary to have kids if you were never raised around kids and you have no idea what to do. And secondly, in our culture still, the majority of childbearing falls on the woman. So if you are married to a guy who really, really, really wants to have kids and you don't really want to have kids, I think it's perfectly fair to say, you know what? Okay, let's have some kids. We're going to find a way where you're going to do the majority of the raising. Like, obviously, like, you both are involved. But we have no qualms with having the dad be, like, maybe 25% and the mom 75%. But if the dad's the one who really, really, really wants to have kids, I don't see there being any issue with her saying, well, then we need to figure out how you're going to be the primary caregiver.
Yeah, I think that's totally up for debate. And a lot of, like, I actually know a lot of stay-at-home dads. A lot of it depends on who has the bigger income potential. And
even just, like, I know a couple guy friends who I know who are just natural, amazing dads and who don't have a lot of drive to do something working outside the house. Yeah. And there's, like, you know what I would love to do? Meal plan.
Go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think in your generation that's increasingly,
it's much more in my generation.
Common. But I also think we don't talk up children enough.
I know, they're seen as little, like parasites almost.
Yeah.
And they're not.
Like, she even says, it's been extremely painful to reject that part of myself. And what she means is that part of myself that isn't going to have kids, that I guess is able to focus on me. So she's saying, it's really hard to reject that part of myself during these last few months when we tried to get pregnant. Am I being unreasonable to ask for sacrifices from him? You know, having a kid should not just be a sacrifice. Like, it's a wonderful
thing. It's
thing.
Terrifying. The responsibility you take on is obviously, like, it's very sobering.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's a tragedy. And I think that our culture, especially people in my generation, she is part of my generation.
Yeah.
This is going to sound harsh, but there is a lot of me thinking, like, but I want to travel, but I want to have this kind of thing, but I want to do this. But there is this tendency to think about just what you want right now and what will bring you pleasure, not what will be purposeful but what will bring you pleasure and what you like. And I just think that we need to realize that not being able to always get what you like doesn't mean that you have to kill part of yourself.
Yeah, that's not killing part of yourself. And there's a huge difference between not having kids in your 20s, 30s, and even 40s, and not having kids in your 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Totally.
Like,
I mean, if you're getting older, I mean, like, I fully expect to help take care of my grandma and grandpa, and my nana, and my aunts and uncles as they age. Like, I know that that's just part of my job in our family, and that's something I want, like, I'm okay with doing. Like, I want them, that's fine. I accept that. But we have I worked at a YMCA where I worked during seniors hours. There were so many people who didn't have kids or didn't have any grandkids, and they had no one when something happened.
So, you know, it's a very different life in your senior years. And as I'm getting older, I'm starting to realize that. So I guess what I would say to this woman is, let's rethink how we talk about kids, because they really are a blessing. They are tremendously fulfilling in ways that you don't even realize before you have them. And I'm not saying everybody has to have kids, but I do think that we're talking down kids too much in our culture, and that is a big problem. So kids are great, you're great, Katie's great, my sons-in-laws are great. Again, to this letter writer, never ever assume that any birth control method is perfect, okay?
So don't marry someone you'd be afraid to put a kid near.
Yes. We should always assume that if we're having sex, we could get pregnant, and that is okay. So tune in for the rest of our series on Wednesdays. Check out the posts that have already been there about different birth control methods and just how to get comfortable with your body and how to get comfortable with figuring out your fertility. So thanks for joining us on Ask Sheila, and check out the blog at To Love, Honor, and Vacuum.